With his impressive performances so far this season, it seems as though Pascal Siakam could be a lock to make an all-star team this season, but he could have another Raptors player joining him in OG Anunoby. So in today's video, we're going to assess OG Anunoby's recent outburst on offense and his very real case to make his first ever all-star appearance this season. Let's get into it. What's going on, NBA and Raptors fans? It's Jacob here, back with Amateur Hour Sports for another Toronto Raptors YouTube video. On this channel, I bring you the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news and videos and content just like this. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Help me on my road to 13,000 subs. We want to hit that milestone by the end of 2022. I know that we can do it. Also, if you find yourself enjoying along the way, be sure to drop a like on the video. But today's video is going to be all about OG Anunoby. Had some negativity this week. I mean, we had the blowout losses to the Pelicans and to the Brooklyn Nets. And you know what? We played an Orlando Magic team, which already isn't very good. And they were also dealing with some notable injuries to the team. But the Raptors, they needed a game like this, one to just get the confidence up, one to just bust that slump that they were in. And a big reason why this game was as comfortable as it was from start to finish was the outstanding play of OG Anunoby. And recently, OG has really taken that step forward on offense. We've been waiting years and years and years for the really big leap from OG from an offensive standpoint. And you know, going into this season, I kind of felt like, okay, you know what? I think that this is what we're going to get from OG. 25 years old, sure, there's still room to grow, but it just doesn't really feel like an offensive leap is ever going to come for the player. It just felt like it was a bit of a flatline sort of state, and that would have been fine. I mean, OG Anunoby, the way he was already playing last season, it's such an influential part of the way the Raptors play, and every team in the NBA would want a player like OG Anunoby. That's why every summer, or all for the seasons, there's constantly trade rumors and trade talks involving OG Anunoby, according to the NBA media, because every team assesses like this is the guy that they would need on their team to really put a bow on their roster. Like the Cleveland Cavaliers, as good as they are, could you imagine how much better that team is by just inserting OG Anunoby into that starting lineup? It seems like a very small sort of piece, but OG is a vital component and would be a vital component to many NBA teams. And going back to the leap that we were kind of hoping for, waiting for, and there were previously some comparisons to Kawhi Leonard, myself included. I never really thought he'd get to that unbelievable level of Kawhi Leonard necessarily, but kind of waiting for an offensive jump. We know how good he is defensively, and we'll talk more about that in this video, but maybe this season, are we seeing that offensive leap from OG Anunoby? And the thing is, he's really changed his offensive style. So previously, he's been more of an off-ball player and better off-ball. OG's handles aren't very tight, not very crafty at getting to the rim. Sure, he can use his size and strength to advantage, get downhill, get to the rim, but the craftiness at the rim maybe let him down a little bit. He was more suited to playing off-ball, but in the offseason, there were talks about OG Anunoby reportedly being upset with his role in Toronto. Maybe his camp were asking around the league to see what sort of trade could happen for the player to get him in a more primary offensive role as he's getting closer to signing a new contract. And honestly, the contract he's on right now is an absolute steal for the Raptors at $18 million a year. He's going to want his big payday next time, so he wants to take more of an offensive load. And, you know, I had criticism. I didn't really buy into all of those rumors, but I could probably sense that maybe there was a little bit of a dissatisfaction from OG Anunoby in terms of his role. But for me last season, it felt like he had plenty of opportunities on ball. He was just a little bit more passive than he should have been. So he had the ball in his hands. He just needed to be more aggressive in getting to the rim. And earlier on this season, it really seemed like the Raptors wanted to give OG more of that offensive load, and it was pretty ugly. He had a pretty bad start to the season because a lot of his shooting was just happening in mid-range. He was trying to size up guys in mid-range, ball handle, and take like fadeaway contested mid-range shots. Inefficient shots for, I would say, 99.5% of the NBA. Inefficient shot for OG Anunoby. And he still sometimes reverts to that, but what really has changed for him in the last few weeks, and specifically what was really working for him last night as he started the game 9 for 10 from the field, is that he's recognizing that not many people are able to stop him when he just gets to the rim. He's really, really strong, very strong for his size. Sometimes it's something that can go a little bit unnoticed. Has good speed, good footwork, and if he's slashing to the rim and he picks up his dribble and tries to get to a layup, he is able to do that plenty of times. Like it's just so easy for him sometimes, and you just wonder, like, it really frustrates me sometimes when he does just revert to a contested mid-range shot when I know he can get that shot at the rim with a lot more ease than maybe he thinks he can. He's really starting to notice it now. Granted, he took advantage of a very bad interior defense yesterday from the Orlando Magic, who are also without Wendell Carter Jr., but just in general, he's taking more of those shots, taking jump shots less. Those are higher percentage shots, which is translating over to his field goal percentage, and it also is translating over to his points per game. Looking at his statistics from this season, there are plenty of career highs to discuss with the player. Going on the points category, 19.3 points per game, and that number is growing. 48.4% shooting from the field, which would be a career high. Also looking at the rebound category, which is 5.8 rebounds per game, also would be a career high. And the biggest one, 2.3 steals per game right now, had 3 yesterday. That would also be a career high, and the 2.3 steals per game is leading the NBA. And there's been plenty of talk about OG defensively as far as a candidacy for a Defensive Player of the Year award. I think right now, if you were giving out the award, he'd be in the finalists. He'd be in the top 3. But personally, if you ask me, I think this guy is the leading candidate to win that award, and there are many around the NBA that agree. Now, what would also have to come along with that award, the Raptors would have to have like a solid playoff position and would have to have a good team defense record. Right now, the team record isn't where it needs to be for that award, I think. And as far as the Raptors team defense, well, that's in a pretty good position. And when you're watching OG and him playing defense, on any night, he's like locking up the opposition's best player, other than like Zion Williamson earlier in the week. Like yesterday, every game he does it pretty much. Banchero, who's been getting routinely 15 plus points up to 20 points more. Yesterday, Banchero dealt with the wrath of OG Anunoby. A little bit of a welcome to the NBA moment. Banchero drops 9 points inefficiently in this one. Donovan Mitchell got held to 8 points earlier in the week. Like, it's just every game, who is OG Anunoby going to lock up next? And it's very fearful for NBA players who have to go up against him. So going back to the offense, because we know how good the defense has been, that's like something that probably gets you into the DPOY conversation, not necessarily an all-star conversation. But when you put the offensive numbers with that and the way that he's playing and the way like he's just looked on the court, really he can take over a game, there really is an all-star case here. Now, I think it's an outside case at this point. I really do feel like Siakam is kind of locking down an all-star spot here, his second ever all-star appearance, and he's on pace to make an all-NBA team. Maybe not just an all-NBA team. He might be on pace to making an all-NBA first team. Now, I digress. That's Pascal Siakam. We'll talk about him more in other videos, of course, but that's a legitimate possibility. Going to OG, we were waiting. Like, we knew he had some sort of all-star potential, but in the last 2 seasons, it felt to me like there wasn't as much of a hunger from OG to really ascend for these personal accolades. Like, he just kind of felt comfortable in what he was doing as a player. He didn't want to push the envelope a little bit, really take his game to the next level, really be hungry to take his game to the next level. But I really feel like he has that this season. We're seeing it with the career highs in those points per game categories. And a real earmark to the points I'm making about his shot selection, shot location really cleaning up this season. He's taking way less threes than he was in the previous 2 seasons, where he was taking over 6 3-pointers per game in both of the last 2 seasons. He's now down to 4.5, but is scoring 2 points per game more than he ever has in his NBA career. So he's scoring more, but shooting 1.5 to 2 less 3-pointers a game, but has also upped his field goal attempts per game. So he's just taken more of those high percentage shots. And sure, the 3-point game is still there. 35% shooting from 3. That's not as high as it has been in his career, but more than fine and more than acceptable for a player like him, a player that you can trust to knock down his open 3-pointers. But it's just adding in the difference in the shot selection. This is why I always talk about the shot selection, the analytics as far as mid-range shots. Now, mid-range shots are not efficient shots, and they're bad for your team, and they're bad for players. Really cleaning up his game right now, especially compared to the start of the season when he was shooting way too much in mid-range. Now understanding that he can just get to the rim and score there, it's eye-opening for his game. And there was that game like a week and a half ago now against the Dallas Mavericks where he just kind of settled for a shot in mid-range, and I was doing my watch party as we watch all Raptors games together on this channel for watch parties. I lost my mind because I'm like there's nobody on the court who can stop this guy if he just gets downhill and goes to the rim, uses his size and his athleticism. Well, 3 plays in a row late in the game, the Raptors gave the ball to OG. He put his head down, got to the rim. He scored on 2 out of 3 of those possessions at the rim. And the third one, he got fouled and scored 2 free throws at the line. So OG getting down to the rim is a problem offensively, mixed with his very, very good catch and shoot game. And on top of that, those are good numbers, but those offensive numbers maybe aren't quite all-star numbers. When you couple that with the defensive player of the year caliber defense, maybe the leading defensive player of the year candidate the way he's playing right now, leading the NBA in steals, there is a very real possibility OG Anunoby lands on his first All-Star team this season. There's still a good amount of time to go before we get to that point where we're actually voting. We're 23 games into the season now. Raptors are 12-11. I think record would have to be a lot better to get 2 All-Stars, but with Siakam looking like he can get there, it seems to me like OG is building his own case, and the NBA is going to start to take notice if they haven't already. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like. Goes a long way to supporting the channel, and make sure you are subscribed to Amateur Hour Sports for the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news. Doing a watch party tomorrow as the Raptors take on the Boston Celtics. Be there 30 minutes before the start of the game as I go live at that point, and catch more videos on this channel very, very soon.